Welcome to Media Melanie TV. Today I'm back to talk about Maxton Hall Season 2 and preview what we can potentially see in Episode 6, which is the season finale called Reaching for the Stars. Now, coming off of Episode 5, there are still quite a few dangling threads that are going to have to be resolved or end in some sort of dramatic fashion cliffhanger. First up, we have the fact that Cyril and Elaine took a photograph of Lydia and Graham Sutton kissing at this Midsummer Night's party. So, what is going to become of that photo? Also, Ruby lost her Alice Campbell grant, and James is going to try to hopefully convince her to give it back. But if not, at least she's got a plan B with that scholarship situation. Luckily, she was able to catch that courier just in the nick of time. We've also got potentially, hopefully, the reading of Cordelia's will. They introduced Ophelia pretty early on at the funeral services for Cordelia, hinting that there was going to be some sort of reveal afoot. Bring on the reveal, because I'm ready for it, and I am hoping that it involves taking Mortimer out of power from the Beaufort Company. In my perfect world, they'll remove Mortimer from power and give both James and Lydia leadership roles within the company so they can help formulate some of their ideas and push the agenda to start focusing on a younger demographic, which is something that Cordelia wanted. But if that does happen, would Mortimer be on an even bigger revenge tear? Getting to know Ruby with that conversation, then immediately using that information against her, first to take away the Alice Campbell grant, but what else? And let's say he does have some sort of big issue with whatever is read in the will. Is he going to further sabotage Ruby in some way? Lydia did mention, they have these wonderful cinnamon knots at the family bakery. Could Mortimer interfere with the bakery, with the buyback plans? It's funny because beginning of the season, I'm like, James and Ruby are going to end up together. James is going to end up helping Ruby's family get the bakery back at some point. Obviously, if that does happen, it will probably be in season 3, because I just have this feeling that if Mortimer continues on this path, and the fact that they planted the seed of Lydia being so excited to tell him about the bakery, I do not think the Bell family is safe. And I'm kind of still waiting for some kind of a big thing with the will revealing, that maybe Percy is the father of the twins, or something that is going to throw a real wrench into the works here. And is it also possible that something I've been mentioning. Now, this is not a show about murder and killing and all of that, but what if Mortimer did play a hand in Cordelia's death? If he found out maybe she changed the will and it included a reveal like, Mortimer's not the father, or it just had something like she's going to put James and Lydia in a significant position and reduce Mortimer's power a little bit, which obviously, no matter what the will says, if it's not what Mortimer wants to hear, I have a feeling the result is not going to be very good. And then we have the whole investor meeting situation in which Lydia did all of that preparation only for Mortimer to basically throw it out the window for this sugar daddy marketing plan, which I thought was really funny of James to point out. And I love that James is really trying to push back against a lot of this patriarchal institution that his family is so embedded in. But with all of these older men thinking it's a big problem that James's speech went viral, and not necessarily buying the fact that Mortimer is 100% committed to the plan that they have moving forward and not focusing on the younger demographic, could things fall apart before the will is even read? And could that maybe lead to Mortimer being taken out of power? I don't know, but there's a lot of potential for a lot of things to fall apart in the season finale. But before I get more into previewing episode 6, please do like this video, hit that subscribe button. I've been covering Maxton Hall with 3 videos a week. And of course, I will be back to cover the finale. I'm also talking about It Welcome to Derry for all of the horror fans out there next month. I will be talking about Fallout. And Tell Me Lies was just announced to be coming back for its 3rd season in January, so I've also got that on my radar as well. So make sure to stick with me for all the TV talk. But for now, let's get back into previewing the season finale. And first of all, I think my biggest complaint for the season that I've been mentioning is they dropped the first 3 episodes of the premiere all at once. And with 6 episodes, that's only a few weeks of content. I wouldn't have minded stretching things out more, and I do feel like they are rushing through some of these plot points in order to get wherever it is we're going to end up at the end of this season. Season 3 is already in production, probably going to be the final season. So again, this means there's only 7 more episodes of the whole entire series, and there's a lot of story left to tell here. So first, let's talk about Lydia and Graham. First of all, I've been waiting the entire season for Lydia's pregnancy to be revealed. Now, Mortimer still doesn't know about it, even though I actually think there's a chance that he does, or at minimum knows there is something going on between Lydia and Graham, because he made that comment about keeping a close eye on her. I don't know, I think he might know. But what will he do when he gets confirmation in a photograph that Elaine Ellington has access to? Now, Cyril is a little bit bitter towards Lydia right now because obviously he's got a thing for her. He made a move. I've got to say, given Lydia's body language, I didn't blame him for leaning in for a kiss. I don't think it was completely out of line. Of course, I understand why she pushed him away. And obviously, like, nobody wants an unwelcome kiss. Consent is important, but I kind of feel bad for him. But at the same time, Lynn's not happy with Cyril because they had this sort of friends with benefits thing. So I'm wondering, is Cyril going to go back to Lynn? I kind of don't know. And I don't know if Lynn would really be into that anyway after seeing things transpire between he and Lydia. But the most important question here is, what is going to happen with this photo? We saw Lexington get a text message. So did Elaine send that to Lexington? I'm confused because I haven't read the books. I don't know what happens, but why would Elaine be sending the picture of Lydia to Lexington? Okay, maybe she wants Graham Sutton in trouble, but she doesn't really have a vested interest to do so. And why is she going to get the Beauforts in trouble? Obviously, she's upset with James because he doesn't feel the same way about her that she feels about him, and the whole failed spiking of the drink attempt and everything, which actually brings me back to earlier in the season when James was having a bender at the party, which we all thought was just, okay, too much alcohol. But did Elaine actually drug him earlier in the season to make him make out with her and act all crazy following the death of his mother at that pool party, which Ruby walked in on and of course saw? I'm not putting it past her because I'm calling her evil Elaine Ellington from now on. I think she's terrible. I think the rest of her family's pretty terrible too, from what we know, especially Frederick. Did not love meeting him. I do love Alistair, of course, but I think he's kind of the black sheep of the family because he's actually like a good person. But Elaine, what are you going to do? In my mind, I think it would actually be more likely that she would send that picture to Mortimer and somehow blackmail the Beauforts or blackmail Mortimer into forcing James to get together with Elaine, which Mortimer obviously won't push up against too hard because clearly he doesn't want James and Ruby together. But we also have this new James era in play where he believes in the relationship between him and Ruby, and it sounds like he's going to fight and do everything he can to save it. Hence the title of these books, Save Me, Save You, Save Us. And yeah, of course, I want James to be able to convince Alice Campbell to give the grant and the part-time job and everything back to Ruby. But at the same time, Mortimer is one powerful dude. He is involved with everything. He's got money, he's got influence, and I would imagine a public figure like Alice is probably going to go more by what Mortimer says to her than what James does. But you've got to applaud James's effort for at least trying, right? And if Mortimer finds out that he went and talked to Alice, what could Mortimer do next to continue piling on to ruin Ruby's life? And also, just how much of a jerk do you have to be to step in for somebody who's worked so hard for this, for a very blue-collar, hard-working family? It just goes to show that he is an evil person. He doesn't care what his actions cause. All he wants is the money, the power, and everything that goes along with it. And I've got to say, when he does find out about Lydia's pregnancy, and I was complaining earlier, like, oh, we're not getting enough traction with the Lydia pregnancy storyline, but we also have to keep in mind, not a lot of time has passed between season 1 and 2, but all of a sudden in the last episode, she's sort of cradling her belly and you can see the bump there. So that escalated pretty fast. I was also surprised that Graham was so supportive. Obviously, they truly do love each other despite the age difference, which I think, I do find a little bit concerning, but I guess it could be worse. It's more the power of it all, where he's a professor, she's a student. To be fair, they did meet before he was at the school, but still, Graham is just going to be like a stay-at-home dad while Lydia is out being her powerful self, hopefully leading young Beaufort at some point. I think it is highly unfair that Lydia and Graham could potentially get a happily ever after, but Mortimer is doing everything he can in order to keep James and Ruby apart. So if we're treating our kids equally, you would think that he wants misery for all of them. So will he somehow get Graham fired from the school? So now there's just no way that Lydia and Graham can end up staying together. together? What is this photograph going to do? How many people are going to see it? How is Mortimer going to react? And he doesn't even know about the pregnancy yet, but obviously maybe that is how he will find out when he confronts Lydia about the photo. And then all of a sudden, oh yes, by the way, I am also pregnant with his twins. Now, could Lydia maybe intercept the photo? That would hinge upon Cyril or Elaine letting Lydia know that they had it. So again, I mentioned Elaine maybe could go and blackmail Mortimer, but maybe Elaine actually blackmails Lydia for something, and that leads to some other sort of cliffhanger that we will see to propel us into season 3. I'm also curious though, this whole Lydia photograph, what if Elaine shares it with her dad? What if somehow her dad sees it? What if it has an impact on the shareholder meeting if the photo goes public and the investors and shareholders are like, hey, we don't want to have anything to do with a company where the daughter is pregnant by the professor at a school. Like, that is just not good PR for anybody, especially coming off of the devastation that how dare James go out there and be his authentic self in a public speech that went viral for all the wrong reasons. How dare James be an authentic person and come off in public like self-aware and accountable for things? Oh my, the tragedy of it all. But obviously there is this Beaufort institution that's been around for a long time. And even if Cordelia was trying to target a younger market and get rid of some of these institutional patriarchal functions, it kind of doesn't matter, because if Mortimer does stay in control, I don't know, I just don't think anything's going to turn out good for anybody, but we won't find out until we get the reading of the will. So we'd better get the reading of the will in episode 6. As I've been saying all season long, like, when is it coming? You would imagine Cordelia had it all buttoned up and just ready to go, all the legal stuff taken care of. So all I've got to say is if we do not see the reading of the will in this finale, I'm literally going to lose my mind, because I want to see Mortimer suffer some kind of loss, like the pain he's inflicting upon literally everybody else in the show, including himself, because the worse he treats the kids, the worse his relationship and existence is going to be, because you know what? Money doesn't buy happiness. And even like James told Elaine, it's amazing how beautiful you can be but act so hideously. Same type of thing. The Ellingtons and Mortimer are one and the same, aside from Alistair, of course. But I think my absolute biggest question going into this finale is, what will the cliffhanger be? Is it going to be Ruby facing more destructive behavior from Mortimer? Is she going to lose everything? Will she not get the scholarship? Will she not get the grant and James can't change Alice's mind? What about Lydia and Graham and the photograph? Is Graham going to be able to stand by Lydia? What if the photograph falls into the wrong hands? Is there going to be a blackmail situation? What about the will? Will that be how this What about the will? Could the episode end with some sort of big reveal or huge thing, and then that'll be where they pick up in season 3? Are we going to get a time jump going into season 3, or is it going to pick up where we left off? Again, I have not read the book, so I do not know. Please don't spoil them down below. I have done a couple of just quick searches, because when I did my video about Percy being the biological dad, I wanted to know if that was actually a thing or not, because it's not in the books, but again, I do think they could have taken that creative liberty to add this extra dramatic tension. I also just put out a video on the philosophy of Immanuel Kant, who is a German philosopher, talking a little bit about duty versus free will and how they've had these sort of undercurrents of philosophical discussion within this season and really the whole series of Maxton Hall as a whole, especially in making Professor Sutton a philosophy professor versus a history professor as he was portrayed in the book. So I'm also wondering if that differentiation is going to play into whatever the fate of Graham Sutton is going to be. Because if I'm guessing, I don't think he can have a teaching job at Maxton Hall any longer. Is Lydia going to get expelled for being with the teacher? If Lexington saw this, what is his next course of action? Because obviously he doesn't want to go up against Mortimer. Nobody does. So are they going to concoct some other type of situation to deal with this in a way that will punish Graham, but maybe not get Lydia in a big amount of trouble? Is Ruby going to end up being somehow a scapegoat in all of this because she was complicit? She knew that Lydia and Graham were a thing. Is that going to backfire on her somehow? And the biggest question, where will Ruby and James stand by the end of this season? Are they still going to be together fighting for their love, or is Mortimer going to do something else that's going to draw them even further apart? Because the man is on a tear of destruction right now, and seemingly nothing seems to be slowing him down. And then with the reading of the will, the shareholder meeting, there are a lot of things that could fall apart for many of the Beauforts coming up in the next episodes. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, stick with me for more Maxton Hall coverage. Of course, I'll be here for the finale, and then who knows, maybe even another discussion and theory video, depending on where we end up landing. I really appreciate everybody who's tuned in with me this season as well. It's been a really short one, but hey, at least we can rest easy knowing we definitely have a season 3 coming, so it will be back on our screens eventually. I'll be back again soon. Media Melanie, clicking off.